The Werewolf's Heart, A Tale of Love and Sacrifice. Lila lived in a small town surrounded by deep, dark woods. She was curious and loved to explore. One sunny afternoon, while wandering, she heard stories from the townspeople about an old, abandoned cabin hidden in the forest. They said strange things happened there. People disappeared, and shadows moved without anyone around. One evening, Lila decided to find the cabin. She felt a mix of excitement and fear. As she walked through the trees, the sun began to set, casting long shadows on the ground. The air grew cooler, and she could hear the rustling of leaves. Finally, she found it. A small, creepy cabin with broken windows and vines crawling up the walls. Lila's heart raced. She stepped closer and noticed the door was slightly open. A voice in her head warned her to turn back, but her curiosity was too strong. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The cabin was dark and dusty, filled with old furniture covered in sheets. In the corner, she saw something that caught her eye, a beautiful, ornate box. It was covered in strange symbols and glowed faintly in the dark. Lila felt drawn to it. She reached out, her fingers trembling, and opened the box. At that moment, a cold wind swept through the cabin, and Lila felt a rush of energy. The air grew heavy, and shadows began to swirl around her. Little did she know, she had unleashed a terrible secret that would change her life forever. Lila stood frozen as the shadows danced around her. The box felt warm in her hands, and she could hear a soft whispering sound. It was like the box was calling her, urging her to explore deeper. Her heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. Maybe I should close it, she thought, but her curiosity was too strong. She wanted to know what was inside. Lila looked around the cabin, feeling the weight of the stories she had heard. The townspeople had warned her, but she felt brave. She needed to understand the mystery of the box. With a deep breath, she opened the box wider. Inside, she found a shimmering crystal that glowed with a strange light. It was beautiful, unlike anything she had ever seen. Lila reached out to touch it. As her fingers brushed the crystal, a sudden jolt of energy shot through her body. She gasped and pulled her hand back. Then, she heard a low growl behind her. She turned quickly and saw a shadow in the corner of the room. It was big and dark, with glowing eyes staring at her. Fear filled her, but she felt a strange connection to the creature. It was as if it was drawn to the box, just like she was. "Who are you?" Lila whispered, her voice trembling. The shadow didn't answer, but it stepped closer. She could see its fur glistening in the dim light. It looked like a wolf, but much larger, almost like a beast. Panic rose inside her, but she was too fascinated to run away. Just then, a memory flashed in her mind. Ethan, her lover, had once told her he had a secret. "I'm not like everyone else," he had said. Lila felt a chill. Could this shadow be connected to Ethan? Suddenly, the shadows began to swirl faster, and Lila felt dizzy. She realized she had to make a choice. Close the box and end this, or let her curiosity take her further into the unknown. She felt drawn to the box again, but deep down, she knew it might lead to something terrible. Yet she couldn't resist. "I need to know more," she whispered, her heart racing. With that, Lila made her choice, not realizing the danger she was bringing into her life and the lives of those she loved. Lila couldn't stop herself. She reached for the glowing crystal again, feeling its warmth against her skin. As she held it, a strange energy flowed through her. Suddenly, the shadows began to swirl wildly, and the air felt heavy and electric. The growling creature stepped closer, its eyes locked onto her. "Ethan," Lila called, thinking of her lover. "Is this about you?" The creature stopped, as if it understood her. The box began to shake, and Lila dropped the crystal in shock. It rolled across the floor, and the shadows darkened. With a loud bang, the box slammed shut. The shadows recoiled, and the creature let out a terrifying howl. Lila felt the ground tremble beneath her. She stumbled backward, fear gripping her heart. The cabin seemed to come alive, creaking and groaning around her. Outside, the night grew darker. The wind howled, and she could hear distant howls echoing through the trees. Lila realized that something terrible was happening. She had unleashed a curse that could change everything. "Get out!" a voice yelled from outside. Lila ran to the door and saw people from the town rushing past, their faces filled with fear. They were running from something. Something terrible. She stepped outside and felt a wave of cold air. The sky was filled with dark clouds, and the moon was hidden behind them. "Lila," one of her friends, Sarah, shouted as she ran up to her. "We need to leave. There are werewolves in the woods." Lila's heart dropped. She thought of Ethan, knowing he had a secret, but now she feared the worst. "Ethan!" Lila cried out, her voice trembling. "Where is he?" Sarah shook her head, panic in her eyes. "We have to go now, they're coming." Suddenly, a loud roar echoed through the trees. Lila turned to see shadows moving fast, heading toward them. The townspeople screamed and scattered, trying to escape. Lila felt a mix of fear and guilt. She had opened the box, and now the town was in danger. Lila ran with Sarah, her heart pounding. They ducked behind a fallen tree, hiding from the approaching danger. She could hear the growls getting closer, and the ground shook with each heavy step. The scent of fear filled the air. "Lila, we can't stay here," Sarah urged, her voice shaky. "We need to find somewhere safe." But Lila's mind was racing. What if Ethan was one of those creatures? What if she had turned him into a monster? The howling grew louder and shadows flitted between the trees. Lila's breath quickened. "I have to find him," she said, determined. "I can't leave him." Before Sarah could stop her, Lila jumped up and ran toward the woods, calling Ethan's name. "Ethan, where are you?" Her voice echoed through the night. The howls grew louder, and Lila felt a chill down her spine. She knew she was risking everything, but her love for Ethan pushed her forward. She had to face whatever horror awaited her. Lila dashed through the dark trees, her heart pounding in her chest. She called for Ethan again, but only the wind answered. The howling grew closer, echoing through the woods. Fear gripped her, but she couldn't turn back now. She had to find him. As she ran deeper into the forest, she felt a strange change in the air. It was thick and heavy, almost like something was watching her. Lila paused for a moment, listening. The growls were louder, and the shadows flickered around her. She felt a chill run down her spine. Suddenly, a dark figure appeared between the trees. Lila's heart stopped. It was a huge wolf, its eyes glowing in the darkness. It stared at her, and Lila felt frozen in place, but then she noticed something familiar about it. The shape of its face, the way it moved. "Ethan," she whispered, hope mingling with fear. The creature growled softly, stepping closer. Lila could see the pain in its eyes. It was him. He was trapped inside this monstrous form. But before she could reach out to him, the howl of another wolf echoed nearby. Lila turned to see a pack of shadowy figures emerging from the trees. They were big and menacing, their eyes shining with hunger. The air was thick with the smell of fear and anger. Lila's stomach dropped. "No, stay away from him," she yelled, stepping in front of Ethan. The pack growled, ready to attack. She felt small and helpless, but she couldn't let them take him. The pack moved closer, circling around them. Lila could see their sharp teeth and hear their deep growls. She knew she had unleashed something terrible, and now it was all coming back to haunt her. The darkness from the box had spread like a disease, infecting the woods and turning peaceful animals into terrifying beasts. As the first wolf lunged at her, Lila instinctively raised her arms. "Stop, please," she cried out, her voice full of desperation. But the wolves didn't listen. They were lost to the darkness, driven by hunger and rage. Ethan let out a deep growl, trying to protect her. "Lila, run!" he shouted. His voice mixed with the beast's roar. She felt her heart break. This was the man she loved, now caught in a nightmare. But Lila stood her ground. She couldn't leave him. She reached for the box, remembering the crystal inside. Maybe it could help. As she opened the box, the energy inside surged, and the shadows around her pulsed with dark light. "Ethan, I'll save you," she screamed, but the energy was wild and chaotic. It whipped around her, pulling her deeper into the shadows. The wolves paused, sensing the power, their eyes narrowing. In that moment, Lila realized she had to fight. She couldn't let the darkness win. "You won't take him," she shouted at the pack. With a burst of courage, she held the box up high, hoping the light would push back the darkness. The wolves howled in fury, and the shadows twisted around them. The energy from the box began to swirl, pulling at the creatures. Lila felt its strength, but it was unstable. She needed to focus, to control it. But the darkness was strong, and it was spreading. The air crackled with energy as the wolves shifted, becoming more aggressive. Lila's heart raced. She was in the middle of a battle, and if she didn't find a way to save Ethan soon, they would both be lost forever. The shadows swirled around Lila, and the howls of the wolves echoed in her ears. She clutched the box tightly, her heart racing. The pack was closing in, their glowing eyes filled with hunger and rage. Lila knew she had to fight for her life and for Ethan's. "Stay back," she shouted, trying to sound brave, but her voice shook. The wolves growled louder, and she could see their sharp teeth glinting in the darkness. Ethan, caught in the middle, struggled to break free from the darkness that held him. "Lila, don't," he cried, his voice a mix of man and beast. "Get away while you can." But Lila refused to leave him. She could see the fight in his eyes, a glimmer of the man she loved, still fighting to break through. With the pack closing in, Lila knew she had to act fast. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes, focusing on the energy of the box. "I can do this," she whispered to herself. "I have to save him." Suddenly, a loud roar broke through the night. A huge wolf, larger than the others, stepped forward. It was the leader of the pack. Its fur dark as night and its eyes burning like fire. It stared at Lila, and she felt a chill run down her spine. "Lila!" Ethan growled again, struggling against the pull of the curse. "Run, you're in danger." But Lila's heart ached. "No, I won't leave you," she shouted back. The leader of the pack lunged forward, and Lila raised the box, hoping to create a barrier. A wave of light burst from it, pushing back the wolves momentarily. The pack snarled and snapped, trying to break through the light. Lila could feel her energy fading. She was terrified but determined. "I won't let you take him," she yelled, summoning all her strength. Ethan howled, the sound filled with pain. He was fighting against the beast inside him. Lila could see the struggle in his eyes, the love and fear battling for control. "Lila, please," he shouted again, but she refused to give up. The light from the box flickered, and Lila felt a wave of fear wash over her. The wolves were regrouping, and the leader growled, ready to attack again. "You are weak, human," it snarled. "You cannot control the darkness." But Lila remembered the stories she had heard. She thought of the love she had for Ethan, and how it was stronger than any darkness. "You're wrong," she shouted, her voice fierce. "Love can break any curse." With that thought in her mind, Lila pushed the box forward. The light flared brightly, and she felt a rush of energy surge through her. The wolves howled, and the leader stumbled back, momentarily blinded by the light. Ethan seized the chance. "Lila, I'm coming," he roared. With a surge of strength, he broke free from the shadows that held him. He transformed back into his human form, breathless and wild-eyed. Lila's heart soared. "Ethan!" she cried, relief flooding through her. But the pack was still there, angry and ready to attack. The leader growled, its fury growing. Lila knew they had to act fast. "Together," she said, reaching for Ethan's hand. They stood side by side, facing the pack. The light from the box pulsed around them, a shield against the darkness. The leader lunged again, but Lila and Ethan stood strong. With their combined strength, they focused all their love and determination into the box. "We can do this," Lila shouted. The light grew brighter, filling the night with warmth. The pack hesitated, the darkness around them beginning to break apart. Lila and Ethan felt a powerful force pushing back against the wolves. The leader howled in anger, but Lila knew they were winning. "Don't give up," Ethan urged, squeezing her hand. Together, they poured their love and hope into the box, pushing the shadows away. The light burst forth like a sun breaking through the clouds, and the wolves recoiled in fear. In that moment, Lila felt a surge of strength. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for the town and everyone they loved. The energy from the box swirled around them, growing stronger with every heartbeat. The pack began to retreat, the leader growling in frustration. Lila and Ethan took a step forward, the light pushing the darkness away. They could feel the curse lifting, the shadows shrinking back into the woods. But even as the pack faltered, Lila knew the battle was not over. They still had to face the source of the darkness, and she could feel it lurking in the shadows, waiting for its chance to strike. As the light from the box grew brighter, Lila felt a spark of hope in her heart. She stood next to Ethan, their hands tightly clasped together. The pack of wolves was backing away, their eyes filled with fear. The leader snarled but seemed unsure, caught between the darkness and the light. "Look, Ethan, it's working," Lila exclaimed, her voice full of excitement. The shadows around them were shrinking, fading into the trees. She could feel the warmth of the light surrounding them, filling her with strength. Ethan smiled, relief washing over his face. "We can do this together, Lila," he said, his voice steady. "If we keep pushing the darkness back, we can save the town and everyone in it." His words made Lila feel even more determined. Just then, a strange noise echoed from the depths of the woods. It was a low, rumbling sound, almost like laughter. Lila's heart sank. She knew that sound was the darkness, mocking them. It was not finished yet, but she refused to give in to fear. "We have to keep fighting," Lila said, looking deep into Ethan's eyes. "We can't let it win." They took a deep breath together, focusing on the light. Lila thought of the town, the people she loved, and the peaceful nights before the darkness came. She thought of Ethan's smile, the way he made her feel safe. That love fueled her determination. "Remember when we walked in the woods, just enjoying the quiet?" she said softly, trying to calm her racing heart. "We can have that again. We just need to fight for it." Ethan nodded, and a fierce look of determination crossed his face. "You're right. We will have that again." He tightened his grip on her hand. Together, they raised the box higher, calling on the energy within. The light flared brighter, and the air crackled with power. The shadows hesitated, and for a moment, Lila thought she saw something shift in the darkness. Was it fear? Was it weakening? "We can push it away for good," Ethan shouted. They could feel the darkness retreating, but Lila knew they had to act quickly. The shadows were strong, but their love was stronger. "Let's show them what we have," Lila declared, her voice ringing with strength. Together, they channeled all their love and hope into the box. The light exploded outward, surrounding them in a warm glow. The wolves growled, their eyes wide with shock. The leader snarled but stumbled back, the shadows around Lila and Ethan shimmered and began to dissipate. The trees seemed to sigh with relief, and the air felt lighter. "Keep going," Lila urged. She could see the pack starting to lose its power. The darkness that had once seemed so unstoppable was finally breaking apart. Hope filled her heart like a flame, driving away the fear. "Lila, look," Ethan pointed ahead. The path back to the town was becoming clearer. The light was pushing back the shadows, revealing the way home. "We can do this. We can save everyone." With renewed energy, they pressed forward, the box glowing fiercely in their hands. The wolves were retreating. But Lila knew the leader would not give up easily. "We have to finish this," she said, her voice steady. They moved together, the light illuminating the dark forest. The pack was losing its strength, but the leader growled fiercely. "You think you can defeat me?" it shouted, its voice echoing like thunder. "We will," Lila shouted back, feeling brave. "Love is stronger than any darkness." The light from the box surged, and Lila and Ethan pushed it toward the pack, determined to banish the shadows for good. The wolves howled in anger, but Lila could see the fear in their eyes. She felt the hope in her heart grow stronger. They were close to victory, and they wouldn't stop until the darkness was gone. With one final push, Lila and Ethan aimed the light at the leader. "This is for our town," they cried together, their voices ringing out in the night. The light exploded, filling the forest with warmth and brightness. The darkness shrank back, and the leader let out a terrified howl. Lila felt a wave of relief wash over her as the pack finally retreated, disappearing into the shadows. The air felt lighter, and the tension began to fade. For the first time, she felt a sense of peace. They had hope, and together they could face whatever came next. As the light from the box began to fade, Lila and Ethan stood together, catching their breath. The shadows had retreated, but they knew the darkness was still there, lurking in the woods. Lila felt a mix of hope and fear. They had fought hard, but the battle was not over yet. Ethan looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. "Lila, we did it, we pushed them back," he said. But his voice was still heavy with worry. "But we need to finish this. The darkness can return if we don't stop it for good." Lila nodded, understanding what he meant. They had to make a choice. They could leave the box and return to the town, hoping that the darkness would not come back. Or they could use the box to seal the shadows away forever, but that might mean sacrificing something important. "What do we do?" Lila asked, her voice shaking. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her. "If we close the box, what happens to us? What if it takes us too?" Ethan took a deep breath. "I don't know, but I do know that we can't let the darkness hurt anyone again. We have to protect the town and the people we love." Lila looked around at the quiet woods, feeling the cool breeze against her skin. She thought about her friends, her family, and all the good times they had shared in the town. The thought of losing them made her heart ache. "I don't want to lose you, Ethan. I can't imagine a life without you." Ethan reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I don't want to lose you either. But if we don't do this, we might lose everything." His eyes were serious, and Lila could see the determination in them. She knew he was right. Tears filled her eyes, but she took a deep breath, wiping them away. "We can do this together," she said, her voice steadying. "We'll face whatever comes. I believe in us." Ethan smiled softly, and Lila felt a surge of strength. They were stronger together, and love would guide them through the darkness. "Okay," he said, "let's close the box and seal away the shadows for good." They stood side by side, facing the box. Lila's heart raced as she reached out, feeling the warmth still radiating from it. "We need to channel all our love and hope into it," she said, looking at Ethan. "That's the only way to make it work." Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with resolve. "Let's do it, for the town, for us." Together, they took a deep breath and closed their eyes. Lila focused on all the good things in her life. The laughter of her friends, the warmth of the sun, and the love she felt for Ethan. She thought of all the peaceful nights they had shared, and the future they could still have. "On three," Ethan said, his voice steady. "1, 2, 3. They opened the box together, and a bright light erupted from within. Lila could feel the energy swirling around them, filling the air with warmth and love. She concentrated hard, pouring everything she had into the light. "Stay strong," Lila shouted, feeling the power of their love surge. The light expanded, pushing back the remaining shadows. The darkness was fighting back, but they held their ground. Suddenly, Lila felt a tug at her heart. The box started to vibrate, and she realized it was asking for a sacrifice. "Ethan, I think we have to give something up," she exclaimed. He looked at her, confusion in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I think it needs a part of us to seal the darkness away forever," Lila explained, feeling the weight of the decision. "But we can't both lose something. We need to choose." Ethan took a moment, his expression serious. "I can't let you sacrifice everything, Lila. You mean too much to me." Tears filled her eyes again. "And you mean everything to me, Ethan. But we can't let this darkness win. We have to protect the town." Lila felt a deep ache in her heart as she made her choice. "I will sacrifice my memories of you if it means keeping everyone safe. It's worth it." Ethan shook his head, panic in his eyes. "No, Lila, I can't let you do that." But Lila stood firm. "I love you too much to let the darkness take over. It's the only way." As the light pulsed around them, Lila felt her heart racing. She was ready to make the ultimate decision. She took a deep breath and spoke firmly. "I choose to give up my memories, so the darkness will never return." The light from the box surged, and Lila felt a powerful force pulling at her. It was a bittersweet feeling. She knew she would lose her memories of Ethan, but she also felt proud of her choice. She was fighting for love, for hope, and for a future free of darkness. Ethan reached for her, tears streaming down his face. "No, Lila, I can't lose you, please." But it was too late. The light engulfed them both, and Lila felt her memories fading. She held onto Ethan's hand as tightly as she could, trying to remember every moment they had shared. But slowly, everything began to slip away. In that final moment, she whispered, "I love you, Ethan." And as the darkness was sealed away, Lila felt herself drifting into the light, hoping that one day she would find her way back to him. The light from the box surrounded Lila and Ethan, shining brightly like a star in the dark night. Lila felt a warm sensation wrap around her, but also a strange heaviness in her heart. She was giving up her memories of Ethan, the love of her life, to protect the town from the darkness. As the light pulsed, she could hear Ethan's voice, filled with pain and desperation. "Lila, please, don't do this." He was holding onto her tightly, his grip strong and warm. "I have to, Ethan," she said, her voice trembling. "It's the only way to keep everyone safe. You know it's true." Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she felt a sense of peace knowing she was making this choice out of love. The box began to vibrate more intensely. Lila could feel the energy pulling at her, trying to take away her memories. She squeezed Ethan's hand tighter, wanting to hold onto him just a little longer. "Remember our walks in the forest," she said, trying to hold onto the moment. "The laughter we shared?" "I remember," Ethan replied, his voice shaking. "I'll never forget those moments. I can't lose you, Lila." But as the light brightened, Lila could feel her memories slipping away, like sand through her fingers. She thought about all the times they spent together. Their first kiss, the way he made her laugh, the warmth of his embrace. She wanted to hold on to every single moment, but the light was too strong. With a final surge, the box glowed brighter than ever, and Lila felt a rush of energy. "I love you, Ethan," she shouted, her voice echoing through the night. "I will always love you." The light engulfed her completely, and she felt herself being lifted away. Everything around her began to fade. The trees, the forest, and even Ethan's face, the warmth of his hand slipped away, and she knew she was losing him. In her heart, she felt a deep sadness. She was making this sacrifice to save the town, but it hurt to let go of the man she loved. As the memories faded, Lila held onto the feeling of love in her heart, hoping it would be enough to protect them both. Ethan's voice echoed in her mind, full of love and longing. "I will find you again, Lila, I promise." And then everything went dark. The light from the box faded, and Lila felt a deep silence. She was no longer in the forest. The warmth was gone, replaced by a cold emptiness. When Lila opened her eyes again, she was standing in the middle of the town square, surrounded by people. The sun was shining, and everything seemed peaceful. But something felt different. The memories of Ethan were gone, replaced by a sense of loss she couldn't quite understand. She looked around, confused. "What happened?" she whispered. People were smiling and talking, but Lila felt a deep ache in her heart. She noticed her friends, Sarah and others, but they seemed distant, as if they were part of a dream. "Lila, you're back." Sarah ran to her, her eyes wide with relief. "We were so worried." "What do you mean?" Lila asked, still trying to understand. "What happened?" "The wolves were driven away," Sarah explained, hugging her tightly. "You did it. You saved us all." Lila felt a flicker of happiness. She had saved the town, but the ache in her heart remained. "But what about?" She started to ask, but the words wouldn't come. The memories of Ethan were just gone, like a beautiful song that had faded away. Days passed, and Lila tried to adjust to life in the town. The people celebrated, grateful to be safe, but Lila felt lost. She walked through the forest, looking for signs of the past, hoping to remember the love that had once filled her heart. One evening, she found a quiet spot by the river where she and Ethan used to sit. The water flowed gently, and the sun set in a beautiful display of colors. Lila closed her eyes, feeling the warmth on her skin. In that moment, she felt something stir in her heart, a soft whisper of a memory that she couldn't grasp. She longed to remember Ethan's smile, his laughter, and the way he made her feel alive. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she whispered into the wind, "Ethan, wherever you are, I hope you're safe. I hope you remember me." But the darkness had been sealed away, and the memories of their love had vanished. Lila knew she had made the ultimate sacrifice, and while she saved the town, she felt a piece of herself missing. Yet even in her sorrow, there was a flicker of hope. The love she felt for Ethan was still there, deep in her heart, and she believed, somehow, that love would find a way to bring them together again. Lila stood by the river, watching the last rays of sunlight disappear behind the trees. She felt a deep sadness in her heart, but also a strange hope. She had saved the town from darkness, yet she had lost the man she loved. Days turned into weeks, and Lila tried to move on. She went to work, spent time with her friends, and helped with the town celebrations. But every night, as she lay in bed, she felt a longing for Ethan. His face was a blur in her mind, like a fading dream. One night, as she walked through the forest alone, she stopped by the same spot where they had often talked, and laughed. She closed her eyes and remembered the warmth of his hand in hers. The gentle sound of the river reminded her of the times they had shared. Suddenly, she heard a rustle in the bushes. Lila's heart raced. "Hello?" she called, her voice echoing in the stillness. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Lila squinted, her breath caught in her throat. It was a wolf, standing tall and proud, its fur shining under the moonlight. But there was something different about it. The wolf's eyes glowed with a familiar light, and for a moment, Lila felt a rush of recognition. "Ethan," she whispered, her heart pounding. The wolf tilted its head, as if it understood her. Lila took a cautious step forward. "Is it really you?" The wolf stepped closer, and Lila felt a connection deep within her. She reached out her hand, hesitating for a moment. "You're here," she gasped, tears filling her eyes. But as she touched the wolf's fur, a wave of memories washed over her, bright and vivid. She saw flashes of their time together. Their first date, the laughter, the quiet moments in the forest, the memories were bittersweet, filling her with joy and sadness all at once. Lila realized the wolf was not just a creature of the forest, it was a part of Ethan. "You found a way to come back to me," she breathed, her heart swelling with hope. But just as quickly, doubt crept in. "Can we be together again?" she asked softly. The wolf looked at her, its eyes full of wisdom. In that moment, Lila understood the enigma. The love they shared was strong enough to bridge the worlds of human and beast, but would they ever truly be together again? The wolf began to back away, glancing over its shoulder toward the deeper woods. Lila felt a pull in her heart. "Wait," she called, desperation rising in her voice. "I don't want to lose you again." But the wolf paused, looking back at her one last time. In its gaze, Lila saw the answer to her question. A promise, a hope, and a challenge. They might not be together in the way she wished, but their love was still alive, intertwined with the magic of the forest. As the wolf disappeared into the shadows, Lila felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that love could transcend any barrier. Though she had sacrificed her memories, a part of her would always remember Ethan, and he would always be with her in spirit. With a renewed sense of purpose, Lila turned back toward the town, ready to embrace her life. She had faced darkness and made great sacrifices. But she also had love that would never fade. And perhaps one day, under the light of the moon, she and Ethan would find a way to be together again. As she walked, she smiled through her tears, knowing that love is a powerful force. It may bring challenges and heartache, but it also brings hope. Lila felt that hope glowing in her heart, guiding her forward into a future full of possibilities, a future where love would always light the way.